The U.S. Energy Information Administration has begun publishing information from regional transmission organizations and independent system operators in the Wholesale Electricity Market Portal. The purpose of this portal is to provide information from these regional transmission organizations and independent system operators in the United States in a unified, structured way so that there's a one-stop shop for accessing all of this information. Regional transmission organizations and independent system operators act as balancing authorities, which provide data on generation and demand across the wholesale transmission grid in the lower 48 states. These appear on other EIA products like the Hourly Electric Grid Monitor. What's distinct about regional transmission organizations and independent system operators is they also operate auctions where prices are formed that settle in the wholesale electricity market. These don't exist in all of the balancing authorities. They also comply and structure different data sets than what are available in the Hourly Electric Grid Monitor, and EIA has begun compiling and structuring those in a unified way to provide access to interested parties. A list of key data sets is provided on our website. We are extracting information from the websites of these regional transmission organizations and independent system operators that are already published on their own websites, but providing it in a way that is easily accessible to users. Data is available as provided by these different entities on a real-time basis or on an hourly or quarterly or monthly basis, depending on the individual data set and how it's available. We can bulk download the CSV files if you're interested. We've also developed dashboards to display meaningful information in a unified way. But again, we're providing the data as is and are not responsible for any reliance on the data for any specific use. Displayed on the screen is a dashboard of information from the Independent System Operator of New England. This is the Wholesale Electricity Market Dashboard. That is the landing page, the first page of the information provided in the Wholesale Electricity Market portal. This displays information from the states that are represented by in New England by the Independent System Operator of New England. And the first thing that you'll notice is a filter of dates for all the graphs. So right now I'm displaying information from the last 18 days. This controls all of the graphs below. The first visualization is generation by fuel mix, and then a map of New England. You can see the information that's filterable by fuel source, and the data is available in intermittent intervals. This is how it's provided by the ISO New England. If you want to isolate to a single fuel source, for example, coal, you can see a large spike in generation from coal that happened around the 25th of March. Or you can see the steady output of the nuclear fleet inside of ISO New England during this time period. All of the information is standardized into these fuel sources, and we've displayed and structured the data in as consistent a way as possible. You can see specific points by hovering over the line charts, and again, you can filter each of the primary fuel sources using these icons below. The next information shows the demand. So this is the amount of electricity that's being consumed inside of the New England system. There's a total line at the top here. And then there's also regional information for mostly the states. So you can see New Hampshire, Northeast Massachusetts. Some of the regions are actually subdivide the states. So Massachusetts is broken up into 3 sections. It's available on a sub-hourly basis, and the demand information is available more frequently than the regional information. And so you can see both of those are provided in one graph. If you're interested in isolating just one of the regions, you can click on the state in the map, and it will filter just that region within the time series. And then unclicking removes the filter. Again, this is available with a 5-day lag, and then the demand information is updated up to the current day. The next graphic shows the temperature at the major demand centers, so the airport in Boston, and that's provided by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then we also display the prices. These are also available regionally with that same interaction. So if you wanted to look at the hourly prices for the day-ahead market, or the 5-minute real-time prices for Maine, Just clicking on the map will display only the information for that region. Just a note, in addition to this dashboard that again is standardized for all of the regional transmission organizations, we also are displaying the something unique about ISO New England. And one of the data sets that they provide is the imports on a net basis, again available on every hour by the actual transmission lines that are flowing into their region. So you can see this light blue line is the amount of generation that's flowing into ISO New England from Hydro-Quebec Phase 1 and 2. That's one transmission line. And you can look at their the interchange that they're actually sending power to the New York Independent System Operator on the Roseton line. These net imports or exports also have prices that are available on the hourly basis as well, and those correspond to the same data sets, and you can click on the graphic to identify exactly which one of the import lines and the corresponding price associated with them. What's displayed on the screen is the dashboard for the regional transmission organizations, wholesale electricity market data for PJM, a region in the mid-Atlantic United States. This is the largest region by demand and corresponds to large demand centers on the eastern seaboard, including Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., down to Richmond, all of Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, parts of Indiana, and then all the way west into Chicago. Again, this information is provided in a standard format for all of the regional transmission organizations, including PJM. The first interaction you'll see is the ability to filter all of the graphics. Right now, it's set to the last 14 days. We also are showing the generation by fuel source. So you can see PJM provides that information on a hourly basis. It is displayed by the major fuel categories, including natural gas, coal, hydroelectric, nuclear, other, and storage, wind, solar, other renewable, and other fossil. These, again, are filterable. So if you wanted to look at only the nuclear output, you could click on the nuclear icon and it would display just that data set. Again, natural gas is a large fuel source within PJM, and you can see its output as it varies throughout this time period, the last 2 weeks. It's available up to the most recent days. The next data set that's displayed is demand for electricity by area. And so within PJM, there are several smaller regions, and because there are just so many different demand areas, we've provided a drop-down to filter just for one. So if you wanted to see only Baltimore Gas and Electric's area, first on the map, you can click on this drop-down filter. It would then move the map just to that area, and you could isolate only the demand for Baltimore Gas and Electric within the graph by clicking on the map. To remove the filter from the graphic, click inside the map, and then again you can select all to reset the map to the entire system. Again, this information is provided on an hourly basis by the different demand areas. And you can see there's a slight data gap starting around the 28th of March, where there was information that was not provided by PJM, and will be backfilled whenever it's available. The next data set is the temperature at major demand centers. We display 4 hourly temperature readings from airports within PJM's footprint. That include Chicago, Columbus, Washington, D.C., and then Philadelphia. These are again provided by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Finally, we display wholesale electricity prices, both at the day ahead on an hourly basis, and then on a 5-minute basis in the real-time market. These are from generation hubs within PJM. So these are represent centers for generation points within their system. They have names like Northern Illinois, Chicago, AEP Dayton, Ohio's hub, PJM West, the Western hub, Dominion, Eastern hub, and then the New Jersey hub. So these are, again, not demand center points, but they reflect generation hubs within PJM's footprint. And again, we have the same interaction that we have on the map above. If you wanted to isolate just, for example, the AP Dayton hub for the day ahead and the 5-minute prices, you can click on the map and display just that information. What's displayed on the screen is a wholesale electricity market dashboard for the Southwest Power Pool, which is a region in the central United States, which spans from the northern border with Canada all the way down into parts of Texas, New Mexico, and into a small portion of Louisiana. So a large geographic area in the central United States. The initial information shows the ability to filter on all of the graphics. Right now it's at the last 19 days. The next information shows generation by fuel mix, and you can see the large generation source of wind here within the central United States. So there's a large concentration of wind-fired generation. The next highest is natural gas, and then coal. So a diverse set of fuel sources within the central United States. Each of the graphics, again, is filterable. So if you wanted to isolate only wind, you can see the wind output here. Clicking on any, or hovering over any part of the line will show the point at that given 5-minute interval. Again, the Southwest Power Pool provides these points at a 5-minute level, and so that's how they are provided here. The next data series is demand. And again, because of the large number of demand areas within the Southwest Power Pool, we've created an ability to filter on an individual region. So if you wanted to look at, for example, Kansas City Power and Light, that region, clicking on the dropdown will filter the map to just that area. And then you can see just the amount of demand on an hourly basis that corresponded to Kansas City and Power Light by clicking on the service territory. This information is, again, you can turn the filters off by clicking on the entire area. Because there are often several individual utilities or cooperatives that correspond to one large transmission area, we've provided graphics for each of the small delivery points or delivery companies that map up to the transmission level that are provided by the Southwest Power Pool. So for example, you can see that Basin Electric Cooperative is within the WAPA Upper Great Plains East territory within the data provided by the Southwest Power Pool. And again, clicking on that will show that this is Basin Electric Cooperative, and then the full amount of information that corresponds to the entire orange area on the map here, all of the WAPA Upper Great Plains East. The next information that we provided is temperature. There are 3 temperature points that are provided within SPP's area. Again, they correspond to the airport temperature points, one in Omaha, one in Kansas City, and then one in Oklahoma City. And finally, we display the wholesale electricity prices both on an hourly basis in the day-ahead market and at a 5-minute basis in the real-time market for 2 generation hubs, SPP North and SPP South. Again, that same interaction. If you wanted to isolate just the north or just south, you can click on the graphic on the map, and then it also will show separation within the system between the northern and southern hubs. What's displayed on the screen is the wholesale electricity dashboard for the California Independent System Operator, which is a Western market, largely corresponding to most of California, but also a portion of Nevada. The initial graphic that is displayed here shows the generation by fuel type. You can see the large amount of solar electricity that's provided inside of the California Independent System Operator, and then also natural gas, hydro, nuclear, other fuels, which includes imports and energy storage, and then also wind. This information is provided on a 5-minute basis, and it's updated up through the most recent day. Additional dashboard that's provided, a component of the generation mix just for the battery storage assets that are inside the California Independent System Operator. So there's a dashboard that shows in blue here the amount of charging when the value is negative, and then discharging when the value is positive. Again, this is the last 2 weeks of data, and you can see the very close relationship between the price of electricity in the real-time market and the dispatch of the battery storage fleet within the independent system operator. We've also labeled the lowest point and the highest point so you can get a sense for the amount of installed capacity of energy storage resources inside the California Independent System Operator within that time period. Clicking back to the main dashboard will take you back to the initial graphic. Next, we show the demand by load area. Again, there are 4 regions demand regions within the California Independent System Operator. 3 of them correspond to the additional territories of the investor-owned utilities, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric Company. And there's also a small portion of Nevada where there's demand inside of the California Independent System Operator, Valley Electric Association Incorporated. You can see this is a very small amount of demand. It's a lightly populated portion of Nevada. but it is larger in geographic area than San Diego, although much smaller on a demand basis. Again, that interaction is displayed by clicking on the graphic here. So if you wanted to only look at Southern California Edison, click on the graphic here to just show that demand point inside the graphic. Unclicking will then return the filter. There are 3 temperature points displayed here that again correspond to airports within the California Independent System Operator close to demand centers. So there's Sacramento Metro, San Jose, and then also LAX and Los Angeles. Finally, there's wholesale electricity prices at generation hubs within the California Independent System Operator. These are displayed on an hourly basis for the day-ahead market at the 3 large generation hubs inside of the California Independent System Operator, north of Path 15, south of Path 15, and then ZP26. There's also a real-time 15-minute market and a real-time 5-minute market. Again, this is different than many of the other RTOs. There are 2 individual separate real-time markets in the California Independent System Operator, and we provide that information as it's provided by that system. Clicking on any of the maps will isolate just that one hub point. What's displayed on the screen is the Wholesale Electricity Market Dashboard for the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, also known as ERCOT, which is a regional transmission organization that balances supply and demand across most of Texas's electric grid. The dashboard displays initially the generation from solar and wind, which are provided on an up-to-date basis in ERCOT, but they only provide the information for these 2 energy sources on a near real-time basis up to the most recent day. The other information from the other fuel mixes inside of ERCOT is provided on a lagged basis. And so we've shown all of the information provided for the other fuel mixes. Again, this just goes through February of this year. But if you are interested in the full amount of the fuel mix, to look at this more lagged data set, it's again available on a sub-hourly basis from coal, hydro, a natural gas combined cycle, so both the fuel and the technology type, other types of natural gas fired generation, nuclear energy storage, other renewables, solar, and wind. A key point is the dominant supply of wind generation can often make up the largest single energy source inside of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. But again, natural gas combined cycle contributes a significant amount of fuel, as well as does other types of natural gas. Clicking on the fuel icon will display just those individual resources, so you can see the amount of natural gas other, often providing peak demand when demand is higher. And then also you can see the significant amount of coal-fired generation that can peak up to when demand is high. Going back to the main dashboard, again, these data sets are provided as they're provided from the regional transmission organization or independent system operators themselves. The next information we display is the hourly actual load by area. The data is provided in a line chart as well as in a graphic so you get a sense for the actual regions within the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. If you wanted to look at just the northern load zone, for example, you can isolate that with the graphic here. And then unclicking the map will display all of the areas. Again, the demand centers in the north central region around Dallas, and then the coastal region around Houston. The next information that's provided is the temperatures at major demand centers. So we display 2 airport weather stations outside of Dallas and then outside of Houston. Again, this is provided by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then finally, we display the wholesale electricity prices, both on an hourly basis in the day-ahead market and on a real-time basis in the 15-minute market. And so this is provided by the Electric Reliability Council of Texas at a generation hub point, regions slightly different than the demand areas that are displayed above. So they correspond to regions around Houston, the Houston zone in blue, the northern zone, which includes Dallas in green, the southern zone going down to the Panhandle, and then also the western zone inside of the ERCOT western area. Again, clicking off the graphic will reset the charts. What's displayed on the screen is the Wholesale Electricity Market Dashboard for the New York Independent System Operator, which is a region that corresponds to the state of New York. The first information displayed is a filter that will allow you to isolate or expand the amount of data sets provided in all the graphics. It's currently set to the last 18 days, so you can get a time series of all of the metrics that are provided here. Initially, we show the generation by fuel, including inside of New York, a significant amount of hydro and natural gas, as well as nuclear. Clicking on one of the icons will isolate just that fuel source, and you can see there's what appears to be a nuclear outage that then returned to service within this time period. So you can see a ramp up as one of the nuclear units that was offline comes back to full service, starting in the beginning of April. Again, there's natural gas, nuclear, other fossil, which would include coal, and then other renewables and wind. The next data set that's displayed is the hourly demand by region inside of the New York Independent System Operator. There are several load regions within the New York Independent System, and they're shown on a map, which also displays the actual load within these areas. Because New York has a significant demand center inside of New York City, there's a significant amount of generation in other portions of the state in the north or in the west that's then moved through large transmission lines into that load center. So these areas can be large in geographic points, but much smaller in demand. So you can see the central region has a peak of around 2,000 megawatt hours, but inside of New York City, for example, the peak is closer to 6,000 megawatt hours just in this one time period. Again, that interaction is available with the map, and it controls the displays in the chart. There are two demand center temperature points that are displayed here, JFK in New York City, and then Buffalo. These again correspond to the airports inside these demand centers within New York ISO. And then finally, we display the wholesale electricity prices, both on an hourly basis from the day-ahead market and on a 5-minute basis in the real-time market. These correspond to the same zones that are displayed in the demand center above, and with that same interaction. So if you wanted to look at Mohawk Valley's day-ahead price or 5-minute price, you could see that by clicking here. There's also something unique about the New York Independent System Operator, and that's how they calculate the locational marginal price. So locational marginal prices is just a way of formulating a wholesale electricity price, and it typically includes energy, which is shared across all regions, losses, and congestion. New York ISO formulates their locational marginal price as energy plus losses minus congestion. And so you can see in frequently congested parts of the transmission grid, like on Long Island or New York City, there are actually negative components. It's just a sign convention. This actually contributes to a higher price inside that region, again, because of the way they formulate it. So negative congestion components actually increase that constraint and there's a higher priced resource that's setting the price in that zone. That's different than how it's formulated in many other areas, but we've provided this dashboard so you can see that change in formulation, how there's a subtle difference that affects the data that's available from each of these markets. What's displayed on the screen is the wholesale market dashboard for the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which is a large geographic area in the middle of the country that goes from the northern border with Canada all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico in the south. It includes demand regions inside Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Missouri, and then into Arkansas, parts of Texas, and Louisiana. The first graphic filtered shows the ability to control the date ranges for all of the graphics below. Right now it's set to 2 weeks, the last 14 days. This controls the generation by fuel mix, and you can see the amount of resources that are dominating the supply in the system include natural gas, coal, a significant amount of wind output, as well as nuclear, solar, and then hydro, a small amount of hydro. Unique to the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator is the ability to filter the generation data by region. So you can see if you just want to look at the northern zones, and there's a significant amount of fuel. Most of the wind generation inside of MISO's area is actually located in the northern zone. You can also look at the fuel mix in the central zone and then in the southern zone as well. Clicking off those regions resets the graphic to display the total system inside of MISO. And you can also click on any of the fuel icons to isolate just that resource. The next data set displayed is the demand or load inside of the demand regions, demand areas inside of MISO. It's displayed on an hourly basis. They correspond to load zones. Because the load zone 1 is not particularly intuitive to understand, we've displayed a map that shows that it corresponds to sort of these states within the MISO territory. Again, if you want to only look at this load zone 1, you can click on the graphic on the map to isolate it, and then unclicking displays the entire regions. So this corresponds all the way down to the aggregate category of 8, 9, and 10 in the southern portion of MISO as well. There are temperature points or major demand centers that are pulled from the airports in Minneapolis, Indianapolis, and then in New Orleans. These are displayed, again, from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then finally, we display the wholesale electricity prices, both on an hourly basis in the day-ahead market and on a 5-minute basis in the real-time market. These are associated with generation hubs inside of MISO, which don't necessarily correspond to the load points, groups of generators inside of the MISO area. They're again displayed on the map, and so if you wanted to look at the price point for generators inside of Minnesota, that hub, for both the day-ahead and the real-time market, you can click on the icon here, and it'll display it. Clicking off the icon will then reset it to all of the points inside of MISO.